In my career, I've spent about half of it now, or just over half. I spent it in consulting, and then I moved sort of in-house, and spent about 5 years in finance, and now a couple of years in healthcare. And what I've noticed is that there are patterns, almost like a playbook that you can apply to different industries, and doing that and seeing the value that it can generate in so many different areas is something that I found pretty interesting to do, and so I've done it with different levels of success in different roles, but it's always been transformational and really, really beneficial. So I'll walk you through some of the components, and we can talk about the applications in the different industries. So essentially, the idea is to build a data processing engine that then can find signals in the data, mostly through some clever coding that sometimes is rules based, and sometimes on the AI side. And typically, you use a mixture of them to be able to create signals for internally for the business and or for external customers as well, and signals to alert them that things are happening or working or not working, and this helps narrow the focus to be able to fix them. The way that I've done this in my experience, and there will be many ways to solve this type of problems, but in my experience, we have typically started with an automatic creation of PowerPoints, and this is being built by code, usually in Python. R can do it as well, though, and this is built on top of a data warehouse. So you get large volumes of data, and then you might be servicing multiple external customers or multiple parts of the business based on this data. And what you want to do is create ideally a large number of metrics, ideally within the data warehouse, that then the Python code can leverage to create a number of PowerPoints. So you automate the PowerPoint, and then you start putting some smarts into it. What does the smarts mean? Generally, good things to do are comparisons, and bring in some benchmarks. So for example, if you're looking at retail stores, you could compare the demographics that go into one particular retail store. You could compare that store's demographics with the census of the radius of people that go into that store, and then by comparing the store's demographics with the census, you'll find areas of overrepresentation and underrepresentation. And then obviously the question is that what we want? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And then what you can do is, if you do that for all the stores, then you can rank them on what stores are the ones that have the greatest overrepresentation of 16 to 24-year-olds, and then 25 to 36-year-olds. Which stores are most overrepresented in these? And then you can take two of those and make PowerPoint slides for those automatically through the code. And they'll be, once you rank them in those columns, on those dimensions, you'll have stores that come out of the bottom. So stores that have the most underrepresentation of 16 to 24-year-olds. Those stores go into a PowerPoint slide, and then stores that have the most underrepresentation on 25 to 36-year-olds, those go into PowerPoint slides. And then what you want to show in those slides is comparisons or have a number of metrics of that store, maybe versus census, or maybe versus the benchmark of all the stores internally and or externally, if you have external data. And something that I found as a key here is to have lots of metrics where the store might be similar to other stores, and then a couple of metrics where the store is different. And obviously this underrepresentation or overrepresentation in this example is where that store is different. And then what that does is it to the execs that you're presenting or that receive this report, it gives them some confidence on that, you know, parts of the business are working well, and that the data is working well, and then it narrows the focus on whether they should improve these metrics where that store is different. And by having these conversations with different parts of the business, I've seen, you know, immediate changes required to marketing, immediate changes required to inventory, to supply chain, to operations, and it's been really interesting apply that throughout different organizations. But finding those ways to put in the smarts or the intelligence in the on top of the data processing, and by the intelligence I mean allowing the key differences to bubble up to the surface, and only showing those as a starting point to the executives or the recipients of the reports has been super beneficial. So that's kind of like one use case where you create metrics and you rank, and this can be ranking people or stores or assets. You create metrics. Sometimes it's around loyalty, things like that. So that's really good. And then other areas that's been quite beneficial is to look for anomaly detection, and then patterns, where patterns that then are set and alert that happening. When patterns are broken, alert that's happening. That type of information is useful, can be useful. And if you do it first on a PowerPoint, it's quite easy to iterate based on feedback. It's often for non-data people, it's often difficult to understand, to see the value that something like this could bring. And sometimes you have to do a proof of concept and kind of bring it to life a little bit so people start to understand the benefits of it, but hugely beneficial. So in my career, I've done that with PowerPoints, sometimes by automating creation of documents, being Markdown or PDFs, etc. So there's a automatic document creation, which are reports, then ideally with some intelligence behind it, intelligence with what we spoke about. And then this can move into a web app. And then when you get to a web app, it's really interesting because you can have multiple, you can have much more interaction. And then you can have multiple levels where, if we think about 3 levels for the web app, and the top level is these intelligent signals that we spoke about doing in the PowerPoint report. So the signals is essentially creating dimensions and ranking them by it. It's anomaly detection. It's pattern recognition. It's forecasting and predictions, and all that is kind of like in the intelligent signals. And then the middle level is more traditional dashboarding and visualization and traditional reporting, where people go in and they're usually hit with a big dashboard. Sometimes the users might feel like it's a wall of information, and then they have to choose and start slicing and dicing, and they have to look for the signal. In our case, they come in with the signal first. So once they get to the dashboard or the visualization that's interactive, they know what they're looking for, and that might spark ideas to look for similar things in related in related areas, and you want to track the usage of the dashboards, because that might give you clues for new signals. And then, so that's kind of like the middle layer of this web app. And then the bottom layer, it's a scenario modeling engine, where the idea is that they're able to say, great, I've learned the signal, I understand what's happening in the business. Then what if I change these levers? What is that going to do for my business? I've seen it been really good in large contract negotiations, where there's multiple things at play. And, in negotiations, you give a little here to gain there, and understanding doing that scenario modeling is super powerful. So having that in a web app is super beneficial throughout the organization and for external customers as well. And then as an extension of that, you can open up APIs that can share the data and can share the signals, and then parts of the organization or customers will want to consume those APIs directly, and then that's another product. So I've done sort of different versions of this stack in almost most of my roles. It's always been helpful. It's always been beneficial, and I've been pleasantly surprised to see that it applies in real estate as well as it does in finance, as well as it does in telco, and as well as it does in healthcare. And it's helping the organization and helping the customers make sense of the data, having a lot of automation, getting the algorithms to do the work for people, and then having the tools for people to go and explore from that point, and give them a bit of guided exploration, which is people have found to be really supportive. So I hope this helps. I'm keen to hear about your own use cases and what you're most proud of. So let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much, and see you in the next one.